Your English podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Your English podcast.
The best way to improve your English.
Okay, let's dive in. Welcome to this deep dive.
Hi, everyone.
Today we're looking at a source that tackles a really practical topic. Common mistakes parents make when teaching their kids English.
That's right. We've gone through an article that really breaks this down. And our mission, for this deep dive is to pull out the key insights for you.
Yeah, help you understand the pitfalls.
And more importantly, the article gives some practical ways to fix them. Because, as it points out, avoiding these can prevent a lot of frustration.
And stop English feeling like, well, just a chore or something purely mechanical.
Exactly.
You might have seen it yourself, right? A child struggling, losing interest maybe. This article argues that often comes down to some common, maybe even surprising teaching mistakes. So what does the source say is like the foundational error, the big one many parents might overlook?
Well, the article really emphasizes that one of the biggest errors is simply the lack of real daily conversational English. Just not enough of it in the child's environment.
Huh. Even if the parent isn't, a native speaker themselves.
Absolutely. That's a key point in the article. Children learn by imitating, right? They pick up language when they hear it used naturally.
Around them.
Yes, exactly. Integrated into daily life, not just saved for English time. If everything at home is always in the native language, the child just misses that organic exposure the article says is so crucial.
So it kind of stunts their vocabulary and fluency right from the get-go?
That's what the article suggests. Yeah, it holds them back.
Okay, so the article is stressing it's less about perfect parental fluency.
And more about creating that consistent English atmosphere.
Right.
And the source recommends weaving in simple English phrases, things like greetings, meal times, let's eat breakfast.
Or during playtime.
Yeah, give me the red block. Simple stuff. Reading easy English stories, singing songs. The article highlights these as really effective ways to build that listening environment. That's what stimulates conversation skills, it argues.
That makes a lot of sense, making English alive, not just a subject. Okay, so that's the environment. What about how kids actually engage with the material? What does the article flag there?
It warns pretty strongly against relying too much on just passive consumption. Letting the child watch cartoons or look at books, but without any interaction.
Just kind of parking them in front of a screen or a book and hoping it sinks in.
Exactly. The article is quite clear. Passive exposure alone isn't enough. It doesn't really drive progress because there's no active engagement.
So the source recommends parents get involved, like become co-learners.
Yes, or guides. It gives examples like pausing a show and asking questions. What do you think she feels? Or why did he run? Or with a book, don't just read the words. Ask about the pictures. Guess what happens next? Start simple, like what color is that? But the goal, the article says, is to get the child processing and eventually thinking in English.
By making them interact actively.
Precisely. It argues that active interaction is how you move beyond just passively hearing or seeing words.
Got it. So, building on that engagement, what's another pitfall? The article mentions neglecting something important.
Yes, neglecting repetition.
The classic learn it once, forget it instantly problem.
The article says this is incredibly common. and damaging. If new words or phrases only pop up once or twice, they just don't stick.
Right.
The source really stresses that systematic repetition is absolutely vital to get that new language into long-term memory.
So just exposure and interaction aren't quite enough if it's not reinforced.
Not according to this article, no. It really advocates repeating the same stories, phrases, words multiple times throughout the day, the week, not just in one go.
How does this suggest doing that?
Using things like flashcards, keeping lists visible maybe, and crucially, always linking new words to example sentences. The article presents these as pretty essential.
And asking questions, too.
Yes, asking questions, using the new words to force that active recall and check understanding.
Repetition really is the foundation for memory, isn't it? Okay, so from repetition, the article moves to something that feels a bit counterintuitive. What's the next mistake?
It's the tendency some parents have to correct every single mistake the child makes.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I can see how that might just shut them down.
That's exactly what the article states. Constant correction, especially early on, really damages confidence. It makes kids afraid to even try speaking.
Because they want to avoid being told they're wrong.
Right. They learn that silence is safer than making a mistake.
So the article's advice is not to focus primarily on accuracy at first.
It suggests prioritizing fluency and confidence over perfect grammar, especially in the beginning. The advice is to be really selective with corrections.
How selective? Like, what's the approach?
Instead of saying, "that's wrong," the article suggests gentler methods. Maybe repeat the sentence correctly yourself, or ask a question that nudges them, like, "Did you mean?"
Ah, okay.
It frames errors not as failures, but just as normal steps in learning. The article says they should be handled supportively to keep motivation high.
That makes sense. Keep them willing to try. Okay, mistake number 5.
Trying to teach too many new words all at once.
Just overwhelming them with vocabulary?
Exactly. The article observes parents often try to cram, dozens of new words into a single session, but that actually hinders memorization.
Right.
The source actually puts a surprisingly low cap on this. It recommends no more than about 5 new words per lesson or session.
Wow, just 5. That feels quite small.
It does. But the article argues that's the number that allows for proper repetition and active use within that time. It makes retention much more likely than just showing a huge list.
Quality over quantity, then.
That's the idea. Gradual, systematic introduction and review are way more effective than trying to teach everything immediately.
Okay, what about mistake number 6?
This one is about neglecting the full picture, focusing too much on just one language skill.
Like only listening or maybe only reading? Leaving other skills behind?
Precisely. An unbalanced development. The article points out that real fluency needs all 4 skills. Speaking, listening, reading, and writing, obviously at an age-appropriate level.
Yeah, if you only listen, you won't practice speaking.
Exactly. The muscles don't get developed, so to speak.
So how does the article suggest balancing this out?
It recommends integrating activities that naturally combine skills. Like, reading a story isn't just reading. You discuss it with speaking and listening. Maybe write down some key words from the story. Play games that need verbal interaction. The article emphasizes that this multi-skill approach creates a richer environment where the child uses English in different ways.
Covering all the bases for well-rounded learning. Okay. And the final seventh major pitfall the article highlights.
This is a big one today. Relying too heavily on technology.
The screen time trap, even for learning.
Yeah. The article acknowledges apps and gadgets can be useful tools for sure,
Mm.
but it gives a strong caution. They should supplement real human interaction, not replace it.
So the worry is too much tech limits actual communication practice.
That's the core concern expressed in the article. If a child spends most of their learning time on a tablet without talking to a parent or a tutor,
They miss out on that back and forth.
yes, that dynamic interaction that really refines speaking and listening in a real context. The article recommends using tech as a support, maybe for vocabulary drills or specific educational videos, but it insists it has to be balanced with actual conversations.
Okay, so to recap based on this article, avoid neglecting daily English. Steer clear of purely passive consumption. Don't skip repetition. Be careful with overcorrecting. Don't overload new words. Make sure to develop all skills and don't over rely on tech. Avoiding these is key.
That's the path the article lays out for making English learning more effective and, importantly, more enjoyable for kids. The core message really is that understanding these pitfalls and actively avoiding them is fundamental to helping young learners succeed and hopefully develop a positive feeling about the language itself.
Absolutely. So, considering everything this article brought up about these common errors, here's something for you to think about. What's one small, actionable step you could take this week, maybe starting today, to make the English learning environment for a child, or hey, even for your own language learning, just a bit more engaging and effective? Where could you apply one of these ideas right now? Something to mull over.